Alright, so I'm live with Albatross, one of the streamers I know from Twitch, Starcraft streamer. Protoss does not like the Zerg.
I don't like the Terran more, but
Yeah, that's what everybody said when I used to play Starcraft. They thought Terran were trolling.
dude, Terran's just the worst to play against. Most aggravating race,
Yeah, especially when they sit behind with their siege tanks and spider mines.
dude. Even just the stutter step is like it looks BM just as a movement. That itself is enraging.
Yeah, well, I think they've come a long way with that because I remember back when I used to play StarCraft. What were they, Marauders? Yeah, Marauders could actually take on Ultralisks.
Oh Jesus, that just looks infuriating because of the size difference. Shouldn't be possible.
Yeah, it did piss people off pretty good that six Marauders could kill one Ultralisk on their own.
Jesus Christ. Well, I guess Protoss has always been on the Protoss is on the downswing. This next patch is gonna be brutal too.
I haven't played since I think Wings of Liberty, so it's been ages. I don't really know what goes on anymore.
Right. The meta. I've never been one to be I like I've been out of the meta for Legacy of the Void the entire expansion. I play a lot of it, but I've never like been able to keep up with the pro games and actually know what the new builds are and what the new trend is on ladder.
Yeah, I never kept up with any of it. I just did my own little thing.
That's generally how I play. Just wing it.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyways, yeah, unfortunately I don't know too much about StarCraft, so I wouldn't be able to do an entire program on it. But yeah, so when I was talking with you the first time about doing this collab, was back when that SiriusXM guy contacted and like never got back. Like he got back with you, but like he completely ignored me.
I hadn't like I heard from him a few times, but then after that, I hadn't heard anything since. But that was after the E3 incidents. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's I guess what we can talk about because I know I had quite a bit of say and you did as well, so I'll let you get started with that because you really only mentioned it. So do you care to elaborate what happened?
Oh yeah. Well, it sounds. I mean, it is very serious, but it sounds so like I don't know, officially serious, I guess, because I've never really like totally talked about it. But I had never gone to esports events. Um, More so when I lived in New York, I am, I guess, a frequent showgoer and even some warehouse parties in Brooklyn. So I'm very much to going to events. Like I've done that before. I'm familiar with and even more so, I guess, harder like party quote unquote scene than esports. So esports events seemed friendly and I guess safe enough that, and also of course in my interest that it would definitely be something I was interested in. And I got into Starcraft and I realized there were events around DC. I had gone 1 year before I started streaming, and that one turned out okay. I didn't really know anyone. I know I was pretty much only aware of like Rotterdam and Nate as far as casters, and only a few players like Bomber and Colt, and Scarlet was there too, I think. But the year after that, within the year after that, I had actually started streaming, got on Twitch, started playing, actually got really into the pro scene and whatnot. So I, of course, wanted to hit up this event again in DC, of course, this time as like a streamer, actually maybe meet people that I've seen on Twitch as well. Um, and this time I was going alone. Solo event for me, one of the first and very few events I'd say in my life that I've gone solo to. But again, it's esports, fun, video games, safe, kids. But unfortunately, about 45 minutes, I believe, within entering the StarCraft event, I actually was indeed drugged um, by an unknown person. Um, Ended up, I was there, what, 45 minutes, blacked out immediately, like mid conversation with someone as far as my memory goes. And then woke up around 11 o'clock at night. I think I got there around like between like 1 and 3 in the afternoon in a hospital. Bam, whole event over and everything like that. Now, it was a huge shock to me just because, like I said, I've done a bit of partying in college and whatnot and in New York City. So I'm very aware of going out and I guess being conscious and protecting yourself with these things. But there wasn't any point in time at this event either that I feel like I was neglectful as far as leaving my drink around with strangers, etc. But um, I had contacted Red Bull as well as Blizzard about the whole incident just because I felt they should be aware that it happened at one of their events. And what was more troubling was in following that, like months later, I believe in DreamHack Leipzig, uh, I heard of a similar situation happening at one of the after parties for Twitch over there. And then when me and you started discussing, it was like, was it multiple incidents at E3? I think.
Sounds about right. It's been a while
I
since
th-
we
I
talked.
think I think with the E3, it was actually even multiple incidents. So the same thing of people being drugged, which is troubling only because it seems to be a trend as far as like in this community of something like, as far as a negative incident happening. It happens quite a bit, more so than I've ever heard in my life about, like, I've never really heard of anyone even going to parties or bars and having known anyone or they themselves ever been drugged. But at esports events, it seems to be not necessarily uncommon. And personally, I think that's part of um, and I've been there before, actually, and I was there for, I believe it was Wolfgang Gardner, which is more of a EDM show. And when you go to shows there, that venue, uh, the Silver Spring, freaking, they are notorious for being awful about what they let into their shows. If you had glow sticks on your wrists, they'd rip them off and throw them on the ground. You weren't allowed to have any kind of glow toys, no unopened cigarettes, no nothing. And the body searches were pretty aggressive. You'd be felt up by security, and it was like you had to be like, you couldn't bring anything, no chapstick, no, like, very weird and very strict rules to go into that venue. But that was for an EDM show. When I went there for the Starcraft event, I gave them like my ticket and ID, and that was it. They just let me walk in the door. There was no like bag check, no purse check. I had my Spirit hood on, which has a lot of pockets and whatnot. None of that was checked. It was probably the easiest I've ever gone to that venue in my life. And I feel like after, especially after hearing about these incidents, I mean, I would hope that the other incidents were reported at DreamHack and at E3. But you would figure that security would at least well, what my hope would be that would security would have more of a presence at these things just as a deterrent. But it seems like it's becoming not so uncommon event, and nothing's being done about it, which is kind of a concern, at least in my eyes, that it can continue to just keep happening at events because it seems like it's an easy place to, um, I guess, commit that act and drug people. I mean, you have no real security, and you have a lot of people and a lot of drinks, and it's pretty much just like any other bar, especially if you have, I mean, with streamers and people who are mildly famous on the internet, they can attract the sort of character that might be looking to do that sort of thing. Like, it's definitely a legitimate concern to have at events, but I feel like Blizzard, or, well, not necessarily Blizzard, but a lot of gaming sponsors like Red Bull or DreamHack, I don't know if they even acknowledge that it is a problem.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I remember replying on one of those sentences to you, and I think that's how we got started with that conversation because I was one to, I guess, comment on a security slash law enforcement because when you did say that, it was kind of like, well, at first, that I think part of the problem is that they hire security and not like actual police officers, which is something that I got into TwitchCon for at TwitchCon 2016, because security itself is so limited in what they have for authority
Yeah.
and capabilities and stuff. Um, I know that from working security, like you really can't do any back checks or anything. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
something that has to be done with special permissions and things of that nature if it is present. Um, that's why the Dallas Cowboys team I think does it if I remember right. They do the clear bags, the ones that are like white,
Hmm.
and like
Yeah.
that's just so security can check it because they literally cannot touch it. The only thing that you can do as security is you can ask the person to open their bag and look in
Yeah,
there.
she can look. Yeah.
And you can't touch it. That's all you can do. Obviously, police have a much greater level of authority, so they can do a lot more than check the bag if they need to. But yeah, not a lot of conventions are doing that. TwitchCon did eventually. I don't know if I had any effect on it, but I know it was a pain in the butt for me because like I messaged a staff member and we basically went back and forth for like I want to say 8 weeks, and they were like, "No, we're not going to do it. It's too expensive. We really don't have
Yeah.
the desire to do this type of thing." And then it's just kind of like it was that same dance and song up until TwitchCon, and it was like, "Oh, guess what? There's police officers here."
Yeah. Which is good to hear. The dream hack, I don't remember there being any kind of real searching or security besides, like checking your prop weapons and whatnot. Um, but as far as like, I remember even like the after party, there was, what you call it? It was just ID checks. Of course, I didn't hear about any incidents happening there. But I feel like that's the issue as well, is that it's not like some kind of show or some kind of event that you would imagine people trying to bring anything in that would harm anyone else. Um, However, it's not, like I said, not not so common. Like it has been reported, like at least 3 events that I've heard about. There's been, including my own. There's been instances of people being drugged. Um, so I feel like if they did bump up security to that level where people are being checked, um, it might be viewed as a bit strange, because it is just, you know, esports. It's just a gaming event. It shouldn't be like, why would anyone want to do anything bad? But that's kind of the issue as well. I feel like that, like the, I guess, the content of the event is generally, as you would imagine, like family friendly ish, more so than like, say, an EDM concert or a metal show. Like, you expect people to be trying to bring any kind of contraband to those, but you wouldn't expect that at, like, a League of Legends tournament or something like that. Um, but it's nice to hear that TwitchCon actually did something about that. I would hope, like at BlizzCon, since I haven't been yet, haven't experienced the security there. I would hope that they would be on top of it, just because of the like amount of people they let in.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean they did do it, but the problem is they didn't really hire too many officers. They mostly relied on security yet again. So I'm not really sure if that's going to be like, I mean, like, yeah, they went in the right direction, but I'm not sure if it's like really going to be a factor because here's the one thing I always notice when I go to conventions, which by the way, I've only been to TwitchCon and ACon so far.
Mm-hmm.
But I can like go to a convention and then from my experience, from being on both spectrums of law enforcement and security, just like look around, be like, you know, I can see like this is going on type of thing. It's like one of those things when you work in something for so long, like you just detect it out of
Yeah,
habit.
yeah.
And so for me at TwitchCon 2016, the first thing I noticed is there was a lack of patrols. Like, I mean, there was a patrol and all, but the problem is there was only one person that I saw of. And if I can notice that, then it's kind of like one of those things. I'm kind of worried that everybody else would notice the same thing, that there's only one
No,
person
yeah,
patrolling.
true. Very true. That's an interesting point of view, actually, coming from your end. And like that's what I mean. Even things like that, like it wouldn't necessarily like you don't have to be like diving through crowds, checking people's pockets. Like no, but like having a presence, like a legitimate presence in an event, um, as far as security wise, I feel like um, goes a far way more than people would think.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up, and there's a entire thing that I learned in Criminal Justice 101. It's been ages though, but I think it was like the Kansas City Patrol experiment or something. I'll look it up later, but basically it was an experiment done to see what if patrols had an effect on crime. And even though there's no statistic change, one thing that you can take from it is that it does have a second guess factor, I guess you can say, because then people who want to commit crimes have to factor in that there's a random patrol. So then they have to plan around that. And so when you don't have an effective patrol, then it's kind of like, well, you've essentially failed at security entirety because security at the checkpoints aren't going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of other things too. I could mention about TwitchCon if I don't have anything to add. The thing I kind of noticed with TwitchCon was somewhat unorganized. What I mean is that, like when I was there, I think it was Saturday morning. I was there really early because I lost my uh ticket thing, whatever you call that, the little plastic
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I needed that to be able to get back in type thing. But I got there to get it replaced, and I guess it was the event organizer. He was there in the lobby. I was just sitting down, kind of by one of the pillars in front of where the expo hall was. And the guy just starts like yelling that, everybody needs to get off the floor and like go upstairs type of thing. I'm just sitting there like, okay, um, really? And and then it's just kind of like, why do we have to go upstairs? And by the way, I do have medical problems, so I don't like to move when I'm in pain. So I was kind of disgruntled by that. I was just like, what's wrong with me sitting by the pillar type thing? And
Mm-hmm.
you know, the there's that going on. But the part I'm getting to is that the they did allow people into the expo hall that needed to like set up their stuff, but as far as I could tell, nobody checked the people that were setting up.
I know even just getting into DreamHack, as far as even just getting people in and wristbanded and where to go was pretty disorganized as well. And that's what I mean. There was no security there and no real checks. It was kind of a huge mess of getting the proper wristbands for everyone, and everyone was just floating everywhere. So, um, Rebel Battlegrounds both time, like it was very simple, just entering tickets. But like I said, for both of them, it was just kind of ticket ID check and then just again skate right on through.
Yeah, I wasn't there, so I can only comment from TwitchCon terms. I mean, TwitchCon 2015 and 2016. I'm talking about 2016 right now, but I know what you're talking about right there. Another thing too is like, I think security checks should be done beyond that checkpoint because especially with the people that are running those, what do you call that, stands, because their equipment is coming from the backside of the convention center. It's coming in from the outside. So there's a good
Yeah.
chance that somebody could slip in or they could carry something in their big boxes. You never know what's in there. So it's kind of like to me it's like it's defeating the whole purpose of security again on that end.
No, yeah, it's like it's kind of like again, like security is like the word itself. I mean, you're supposed to be securing the environment for everybody. Um, and it's kind of more of just I feel like they're more of just like event managers, almost not even. I mean, just like as far as like they direct people to wristbands, whatnot, but as far as like actual security and making sure nothing um, that shouldn't be going on is like again, I feel like it's just tied to the content of the event. That it's Twitch, it's streaming, it's video games, music. It's a lot of harmless activity in a sense. So the expectation of harm going on at these events is really low. But I don't feel like that's a valid excuse to not properly precaution for those things anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Even though I didn't hear of anything happen at TwitchCon 2016, plenty happened in 2015. So I can say that um, even that is proof enough that if you're at a quote unquote low security event,
Mm.
that things can happen. And they did happen pretty bad at TwitchCon 2015. There was 4 cases of assaults that I'm aware of, and then there was
Oh Jesus.
1 case of assault out of the 4 that was involving roofies. So there was that. Then there was alcohol poisoning. On top of that, somebody
Jesus.
had to be rushed out, and I don't know who it was, but it was a giant fiasco. And I think, and part of the blame is I'm not trying to say that the person's at fault because I'm sure it wasn't them specifically. Because the one thing I've learned in security and law enforcement, it always comes in twos. A problem is
Mm.
never one person; it's always multiple people. And
Yeah.
so, like, I noticed this at TwitchCon 2015. People were sneaking in alcohol because security was again at the checkpoints, and
Yeah.
they're not going to be looking for that kind of stuff. And the problem is the checkpoints for TwitchCon 2015 were actually much different than 2016. And I think that's part of the problem because the checkpoints themselves were actually at the door to the expo hall. They weren't at the door, but the expo hall. So that means that the escalators are right there between the entryway and then the security checkpoint. So you could easily go up the next level without running into security.
Ah, I see. Wow. Yeah. See, that's like a major flaw. And no, you're right. It's like it comes. It that's I mean, even though it's been like there's definitely been multiple incidents. Like you said, that TwitchCon that sounds terrible. The amount of stuff down there, but like I said, it's not unheard of. That's the issue for me. It's like I have never seen any kind of acknowledgement, I guess, from any um like entity in esports, even about this type of behavior or warning against it or like any kind of PSA. Um, which is again just another way they could go about it if security isn't going to be um, an option or taken more seriously at events. At least um, like a verbal warning and advisement, or just announcement from them for people who have tickets. Um, just mention of it itself would even be a step towards improving the situation and actually trying to guard against it.
I agree that there needs to be something done on that, and I tried for 2016 TwitchCon. I actually posted in Reddit basically like, you know, saying to be careful. This is what I heard of from TwitchCon 2015. I was present for some incidences that did happen. But I think part of the problem is in the community itself. As you know, the internet can't take itself seriously. So when I
Yeah.
posted that, they thought I was like trying to be their mother or whatever.
No, yeah. And even just like I know for a lot of like and even another thing for me, like for example, I've gone to that same venue that I was drugged at for Wolfgang Gardner and Glitch Mob 2. And both those are pretty Wolfgang Gardner's pretty much of a ravey EDM show. Glitch Mob's a little bit more uh they're a little bit more underground at the time. They've gotten a lot more famous, but oh geez, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, when I was found and when I was at the hospital, it was immediately assumed, and I mean, it definitely was the case from what I heard during the events. I could not remember. Apparently, I did drink a lot more than I know I can feasibly drink. I'm a very small girl, if you didn't know already. I can drink, but I can't do shots after shots after shots, which is what I told I was doing. So alcohol is definitely an issue um, in that matter. But it was assumed that I just drank a bunch and that was that. I just got too drunk. I know if it had happened at either Wolfgang Gardner or Glitch Mom, the assumption would have definitely been either I'd taken drugs myself or drugs were involved, which again I think is just because of the type of event that it is, and that's just esports. It's just too much drinking instead of any other possible source, which is another thing security should be aware of. Like, I don't believe anyone had. I mean, I had gone there alone, but I don't think anyone was really asked about what, like, had I been in this condition, like, had people seen me uh, beforehand, how I was, or just even to possibly think that it could have been something like being drugged or something else happening instead of just too much drinking. Would have been helpful. And that's when I talked to Blizzard actually, um, represented them. I was like, security should be aware that this is a thing that can happen. Like, remind them that it's a possibility because, like you said, it doesn't always like it's usually never just one person. There's usually comes in pairs. Like if it were to happen at BlizzCon and multiple people were found in that condition, like you might want to like warn your patrons that that's something that has happened on day one or whatever. Um, they take those precautions with other events and especially with esports becoming like a huge industry now and it's gaining speed, it's definitely something that should be taken more seriously.
I agree. And that's kind of why I wanted to comment on what you're saying and like actually collaborate with you on doing something like this because like I can come up with a bunch of ideas of like how to resolve it and stuff, but that comes from experience, and unfortunately, I can only use that experience like once somebody has told me what the situation is, which unfortunately, with what's happened with TwitchCon 2015, like I mean, I was present for one of the incidences, but it wasn't like a really big incident for me to actually understand what happened, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Uh, like sure, the person was knocked out from alcohol, but like I wasn't there to know where they got the alcohol from, how much was it, what kind of alcohol
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
it. So I'm very limited on what I can throw in with experience when I have that little information to work with. But after talking with you, I can see that maybe there's a couple of different things that could be done. Like now that I look back on it, I know one of the themes is to have like a really dark convention, and like all those like really flashy lights, I guess you can say, and maybe that could be changed because um like I guess the way I can put it is I'm used to night vision, but those conventions make it so dark that even it's hard for me to see, and a lot can happen when you can't see. So maybe that's something
Yeah.
they could change.
No, definitely true.
So there's that. I guess they could try the same thing that the sports teams are trying, the clear bags. I mean, it wouldn't be too terribly hard to do that. With like a cheapy, I guess $5 or $6 TwitchCon bag and just make that like the swag thing and then hope that
Yeah.
people take that. I think though for TwitchCon, even if they did a lot of things that I can think of, they're gonna run to more security issues than the other ones because TwitchCon is I guess you can say a family-oriented convention. They do allow
Mm.
people under 18 to go, which is very unique because most other conventions like E3, um, BlizzCon, and all those, you have to be 18 plus. But TwitchCon doesn't have that requirement. So a lot of families actually did come to TwitchCon 2016, with their kids and everything. Now, that's a little debunkable, I guess you can say in itself, because what happened is they didn't allow strollers. So a lot of the families that came had to carry their kids for the entire convention. So you can imagine how
Mm.
disgruntled they were. Uh,
Yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant.
yeah, so there was that, but I'm just saying if it was a factor, if there were strollers allowed, then there would be that issue too, and that's very hard to check right there because strollers have so many pockets and things of that nature.
Mm.
It's not like a backpack, where it's pretty simple. It's got like, two compartments. It's
Yeah,
got multiple little pockets. So that becomes a little security nightmare in itself. And then there's also the fact that we call this padding. I guess this might be a term with a different name depending who you ask, but it's when like a thief takes advantage of a situation uh, by putting like stolen items in somebody else's pockets to
yeah,
basically get them out of the trouble. And strollers would be a prime target because moms aren't really paying attention. So
yeah.
there's that.
No, yeah, true. And that's what I mean. Those are things like you don't necessarily think of uh, as far as like being an average event goer. And like even in my like if I fault myself at all, like I definitely was more um I'm of course cautious drinking in public space. Event wise, I myself was kind of in that mindset of like and check my ID. It's usually a nightmare day. Um, I think even that put my own mindset at ease that like oh like everything's chill, and if that made me more than I would normally be, that's why I think even just uh, like actual acknowledgement from uh, like Red Bull, Blizzard, DreamHack, and other companies of even just mentioning that this is um, something for event goers to actually be wary of would do a lot because, like I said, I myself even kind of it was definitely totally out of my mind as a possibility of happening that day. I just went to go watch some Starcraft, like it wasn't it wasn't even a real thing.
Fair, and I can completely understand that from your perspective. So I hope that they do listen to you. Yeah, I can. Again, I can't really comment 'cause I haven't been to those places, but I can say TwitchCon, I guess, is in a similar boat because they've refused to acknowledge it as well. So I guess your experience there from that particular time frame does apply there too. Actually, I think what's really sad with my experience before TwitchCon 2016 is I've been with Twitch for 5 years.
Mm,
So, like, I know most of the staff members and I do talk with them on occasion. But out of all the contacts that I have with Twitch, only one staff member was ever interested in what I was saying. And they said that they basically want to proceed, but they can't because I need to produce some sort of formal documentation to show that this incident happened. And
mm,
I was just kind of sitting there like, do you really need to go that far? I mean, you're a staff member. I mean, why do you need personal information? Because when you pull up a police report, that's going to be the person's name, address, and all that. And you're asking
mm.
for that. Like, it should be enough, that streamers are talking about it. Like, that it's happened enough times where they're talking about it. That should be a factor before you even ask that.
Like no, definitely if it's been like, and for me even when I had left the hospital and I actually got back to the venue, by the time I got back, um when I walked past the front, they are very much into decorating the front room where you enter for whatever is happening. And I remember walking in, of course, I had Starcraft graphics everywhere. By the time I got back, like 11 o'clock that night, everything was stripped down, set up for the next event that was happening the next day, and there was no one inside, and it was like locked down. So like, especially these situations, like the time frame doesn't necessarily allow for people to be documenting this. And even though like even a police report, like a lot of times, like in my case, I have no idea like what I all I could tell the cops essentially is like, yes, I was drugged, like, and that's it. Like, I was no clues to the person or whatnot, and I mean that's the nature of drugging someone. You're putting them out um, for a pretty extended period of time. But I mean, if it was just one complaint, obviously they shouldn't just take one complaint and revamp their entire security plan. But as you mentioned, I have like there's definitely been incidents in multiple events by multiple different companies. So like yeah, there is enough talk about it that I think it definitely like change in how they go about doing these things is needed and definitely warranted at this point.
I agree. I'm just at a loss of like really how to do it because if they're not listening to me or you, then it's just kind of like, then is there anything left that we can do other than, just go to the convention and watch out for fellow streamers? Because, you know, the problem is getting involved with any of that, like trying to rescue somebody or something, puts you in legal liability too, and that's not fair, for people like me who want to help, because we really do. And the problem is, it's like, oh, guess what? You got involved, so now you're considered a witness, and also, by the way, now you're legally liable.
Like no, yes, I mean that's a different, but like that's a shame too because like it's not like you're just like I'm very lucky in my case that I um was evidently drugged around and I spent my time blacked out with people who were safe and I wasn't harmed in any way. Just memory. I even was told I didn't make a huge fool of myself, which was, of course, another worry. This was one of the first events I'd gone to as a streamer. Um, but it could have been very much, there could have been a lot worse outcome than what happened to me in my case. And that's just something they shouldn't want to risk with anyone who's attending these events.
I agree. Well, hopefully in time they'll fix it, and maybe one day they'll listen to people like you and I. But we'll have to just see, I guess. For right now, the most I
And
can do is,
even,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, like, even anyone um, that's ever roamed the internet, if anyone's told anyone that's gone to events, if you hear any word of this, tell, write Blizzard, write Red Bull, write the E3 people, DreamHack, write whoever, whatever the event is, write them and let them know. Because, and I even mentioned to Blizzard that like all of these entities should be in contact with each other about this kind of thing. Um, because a lot of these events host the same kind of games, and if it's becoming a pattern, that's something they should definitely be aware of. Like if there's, like if it's the problem would be of whoever unfortunately would experience something like this um, to definitely make sure they know about it. And you could only hope that if it's been reported enough and if it has become enough of a trend that they will actually take some action against it.
One can only hope. I can't speak for Blizzard or the others, like I said, but I can say that Twitch is extremely stubborn. So I'm not sure if they'll. Um, I mean, like I agree that things should be like written, but I'm just trying to say at the same time, just be aware that don't put your entire heart out there because then it's going to get crushed type of thing. Like obviously I want you to do it, but I also want you to be fair to yourself when you do this because like one of my experiences with Twitch is they're very, very stubborn. I've been with this community for 5 years, and like I haven't really talked to them about major incidents like that. Really, I mean, I've only talked to them about like getting security and stuff up, but just trying to share ideas with them about how to improve TwitchCon, like it hasn't happened. Like my opinion, as a 5-year veteran of Twitch means nothing, is basically how they've treated me.
Mm. When I contacted Red Bull and Blizzard, when I contacted them, they were very sincere and comforting. Actually, talking to them both was really great. But that's also why I'm saying like if it's happened to anyone you know or heard stories, encourage reporting it because the more they know it's a problem, the better essentially. Because they were definitely open. Like I was on a phone call with Blizzard employees about, and they even just asked me what they could do. I'm like, BlizzCon was happening within a few weeks after Battlegrounds, and no, I had a good talk with them. So it seems that some um, entities are really open to the idea, and like that's something it just needs to be talked about. Even when I was writing them, I guess I was like, why am I gonna write? It's essentially, I guess from on the victim end standpoint, it's definitely just a story if you have no real it's time you have no information about because essentially that's what drugging does. You black out and you have literally no idea what you've been doing or what happened. But it's still worth uh, reaching out to the proper entities about it happening and make them aware when it does.
Yeah, like I said, I agree. We'll just have to see, how things go. And I'm actually really happy to hear that those companies were receiving to your call. That's certainly a refreshing change after being with Twitch for so long because I've gotten just so used to them not really being open to me. Like they'll talk to me, but it's like one of those things, when you have those companies like, oh, just leave a voicemail and we'll get back to you type of thing, like that kind of feeling, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like it's a shame because this is a really serious topic and it's not just you know, it's not something that I feel like should go overlooked. Like as soon as word of these incidents happening like has come up, it's definitely something that should be addressed immediately. And uh, yeah, like I was shocked. Like to be honest, I I definitely have been in I guess I could say sketchier situations, and no, this is definitely where I felt safe and very crate free. And I'm sure that's something they want their patrons to feel, but I feel more cautious at events now. Like DreamHack Austin, I went, which is the next event after that the Red Bull Battlegrounds incident. And I was pretty cautious there. That's what I mean. It's kind of funny, like more relaxed if I'm going out to maybe a show on the week than esports event now, which is kind of ironic, you'd think, since one scene's painted in a pretty bad light and the other one's painted in a pretty good one. But there was no problems at TwitchCon Austin. I didn't hear about anything there, which was good. Or not TwitchCon, sorry, DreamHack. Um, but like I said, there was an incident DreamHack Leipzig, the after party. It could have been unrelated to the esports scene. It could have been um, very much related, but again, it was troubling to hear because I remember it was very quickly after the Red Bull Battlegrounds when I heard about that. It hadn't been that long, so uh, like I said, it's definitely not uncommon.
Fair enough, yeah, and I'm really glad that you took the time to talk with me about it so we could actually get into a recording and I guess put it out there because that's what I will do once I um get done here later tonight and then also figure out YouTube because I would have to create a new channel or something. But yeah, no, I'll definitely get it there and hopefully somebody can learn from that. I will say that I do agree again that it's a tragedy that you have to be so cautious at a convention where you're going to basically just relax, have a good time. It's really unfair to the person that's just um, doing that. But actually, I'll deviate a little bit and I'll add this to make sure it gets out there as well. Is I think another factor too when it comes to like all this in general is you have to realize that all of the burden isn't just on security. The burden is on people around the convention as well.
No,
People
absolutely.
people don't like to get involved, and that's the first biggest mistake I've noticed in security and law enforcement is people just simply don't want to get involved. And the more they don't get involved, the more they empower the criminal. It's just that simple. Um, and then it goes even beyond that. Like I had a pretty weird situation, I guess you can say at TwitchCon 2016 because I won't mention the streamers' names, but I'll just call one B and the other one T. So I was talking to T at TwitchCon 2016, shortly before we kind of got into a fight. And, I was just saying hi because, she's a streamer and all that good stuff. And then B comes around, and B is trying to talk to T because they're like best buddies, which I didn't know at the time. And she was just saying like her internet stalker is here. And I was like, whoa, okay, so you just literally got me involved now
Yeah,
because,
like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to say something there. Yeah, so, and I was like, whoa, okay. First and foremost, you're getting me involved now. And second of all, if you know your internet stalkers here, you need to take action type of thing. And I even said that, like, right after the conversation. And, B's friend was right next to her, which apparently claimed to be a off-duty officer. And I don't know if they're either current serving, retired, or any of that. I tried asking, but I could not get anywhere with them. Like they would not give me the
Mm,
badge number or anything. Um, and they were basically just like, I've been in law enforcement for 5 years. This guy isn't a threat. Don't worry about it. I'm like sitting there just screaming in my head, like, don't worry about it. You just got me involved. Now you've made me a witness to the entire mess,
mm.
and that's another factor too that I'm trying to bring up is with this example is that unfortunately there is friends out there like that and just don't listen to them.
No, yeah, like people need to be watching out for each other. And that's why I mean. That's why I mean by like even just a PSA, like before events. If you buy a ticket, I don't know when they mention it, there would be like information about the event. Like a little blurb there would even be helpful because it would just at least put in someone's head that like, yes, you're going to play video games and have fun and um, relax and enjoy yourselves, but um, there are still very real risks that can happen at these events. And like the simple see something, say something. If you saw your friend a few minutes ago with a drink in her hand and then she comes back and she's acting really messed up, like get people, tell someone, alert staff, alert security. Not doing anything about it is just probably the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, I agree. And I can add to that as well. Even if something looks off, just talk to security. Like even if it's something super minor, one of the things that I've also noticed as well when it comes to security and law enforcement is a lot of people, like I said, don't want to get involved, but the very few people who do have that mentality of um, this is very minor. I don't want to bug the officer or any of that. No, just do it because every little piece of information helps. And that's why they set up non-emergency lines across the United States. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to use one for a convention, you can, but you should try to talk to an officer in person as best as possible. Because that little information stacks up after a while. An investigation can't occur until there's enough information. And if there's not enough information involved, well, then nothing can be done. Kind of like what happened with this situation. I actually tried to deal uh, with the stalker situation I mentioned earlier, but because the person wasn't giving me the badge number, there was nothing for them to go on.
Mm-hmm.
So, just little things.
And
Just
even just if someone's floating around an event and someone tells security, like, he looks like he's lurking around, maybe being sketchy, and if someone else identifies that too and brings it up to security again later in the day, like, then, they'll actually, you could actually be bringing attention to someone who might actually be doing harm and might actually be able to prevent it that way. Like as simple as that, seeing something and saying something about it. If you're not the only one who saw it and not the only one who said something about it, it could be taken seriously, and that's important.
Right, and that's very true. And even I could say that from my experience. There's been times where people have pointed somebody out to me, and I can guarantee you that that does get my attention because once I have at least two people telling me similar things about a person, that puts me on alert, and that tells me that now I need to stop looking at everything. I just need to focus on this one person, let the other security people handle, you know, securing the entrance, because now my priority is making sure that this person isn't going to do anything. Um, and I think it's also fair to say that, I was actually a bit higher up, I guess, I guess you can say in security because the places that I was contracted to work were places that were under the list of potential bomb targets in America. So you better believe that, one person saying it definitely gets my attention. Two, definitely gets me off my post.
Yeah.
Um, I will get off my post to come check that person if I got two people. One will definitely get my attention, I'll watch them, but two is what gets me off my butt.
So like yeah, if you definitely see anyone at an event, you get bad vibes or just see anything off weird, like it's definitely worth it to bring it to security's attention because you never know. Maybe someone's complained before and just like you said, like um they'll be watching and um if said person realizes that they're watching, like that's enough to deter anything bad from happening if it could. So like there's no harm in even just taking those minor precautions at events. Like it's far more helpful than harmful to speak up about anything you see.
Exactly, and that's why I'm sharing this to kind of help because you have to realize that security is basically like the police. We have our own rules and protocols. So, um, I can't just get up off my chair, for one person. If two people come to me, then I could be like, okay, now I have to go to my sergeant and let him know that I'm leaving my post to check this person. Because, we
Mm.
can't just magically leave our post. That's just
Yeah,
derelict of duty, basically. So, once I've got two people, then I could basically show the evidence to the sergeant, and then that way the sergeant gave me permission to basically leave my post, have somebody else cover me so I can at least go investigate.
yeah, and no, yeah, like that would be definitely a huge thing to help at events.
Agreed. And I think one of the other things too I can add in there is be more active as a community because like I get that Twitch is full of drama and stuff, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people I hate on Twitch. And I know hate's a strong word, but I have very good reason. You'll learn that I'm a very reasonable person, and I only hold hate for people that have exceeded my reasonable nature. Um, but try to be as much of a community as possible. And what I mean by that is, reach out. Like if you see somebody that's like alone or something and they're about to walk out of the convention, offer to walk them home. It's that simple. It's actually what I did with TwitchCon 2016. I actually rallied the Reddit community into doing a Discord channel
Mm.
for that specific purpose. So that way people at TwitchCon could get on Reddit's Discord and type in that, hey, I need a walk.
Mm. No, yeah, even just and like that's kind of almost a funny situation too. Like I go to a lot of shows, a lot of quote unquote raves, you'd say, and that's painted as more of a scene where like incidents like this, drugging, assault, even like would be definitely, I guess, more expected in a sense in that kind of scenario. But the huge part of those shows is that community and taking care of each other and looking out for each other, and that's definitely something that should be present in gaming communities like in Twitch and even like there's just that idea of having the Reddit walk home group like that. Um, it's a huge thing. It's not like that hard to do, and it's not. It's definitely like it just it definitely makes you closer as a community of like uh, gamers and streamers and the like. Um, and it just makes the whole experience nicer. If you're at a place where you know people are looking out for you and will help you if you're in trouble, that makes enjoying the experience like that much better.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so I'm out of ideas. I mean, in terms of what I can add to that, do you think we've done a good job? Is there anything else we can
No,
add?
yeah, I think we covered a lot actually. No, I really appreciate you having me on. It's a lot easier to talk about now that I've removed myself. This happened about a year ago now, and it was a few months ago that we saw the incidents at E3. But no, it's definitely nice to actually have a solid conversation about it on a platform that other people could hear about it too.
Yeah, I guess seeing as we're mostly done, I'll end the recording. But before I do that, yeah, I'll add in that that Beam is a really relaxed platform as far as I've been able to tell. Beam kind of like was a cascade thing, I guess you can say, because like one person told me about it, and then I realized like one of my friends was aware of it. They put me in contact with some of the staff members, and then from there, like I just started talking to staff members, asking questions as to what's allowed and all that. And they're really laid back. Like they allow me to do my talk show here, as you can tell. But then there's other minor things that I just kind of I guess you can say found funny, but at the same time, like I appreciate that they're that relaxed. They're cool with creative arts being here. And one that popped out that made me laugh was yoga. Like they they allow yoga on this.
Yeah,
Uh,
nice.
I was like, wow, that's a little bit funny, but really cool because that means that they're basically saying that they promote people who want to talk about, health and overall fitness. Like that is really
Yeah,
awesome.
health, fitness, relaxation. No, that's what I mean. And like that's the beauty of Twitch and all that. And it could actually really be that's what I mean. The having a sense of community, which is something like gaming communities are notoriously bad at, is being nice to each other sometimes. Um, but as far as events, it's definitely that's kind of its own community. People who attend like things like TwitchCon, DreamHack, and yeah, we definitely can all take care of each other and make sure everyone has a good time there.
Yep, and if all else fails, you can just do something like this on Beam. I mean, it's a free thing to do. It's part of the Stream IO network, apparently, as I learned last night. Um, yeah, and if all else, you can treat it as a backup as well, because Twitch does go down from time to time. And as far as I'm concerned, Beam is way more chill than Twitch. So, if you're a streamer that needs like a place to go when Twitch servers are down, then I would say that this would probably be a good place to try.
Mm.
All right. Yeah, I guess I'll go on in the recording. I'll talk a little bit more with Albatross after this. But yeah, thanks Albatross for doing this.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure.